Hey everyone, welcome back to the Bytes Digital channel. It's been a while. So, this is going to be our first foray into a new vein of content. We're going to be releasing kind of these short form, newsworthy explainer videos pretty repeatedly and hopefully providing you guys a new source of truth so you guys can weather this bear market. And so, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first episode of the Bear Truth. This week, we're going to be covering what is going on with the Celsius and the new three arrow situation. So, for the past week, or for even the past month, I know you guys have been seeing throughout the different social metrics what is going on with Celsius. There's been a lot of concerns about insolvency, the words of liquidity risk, and they've even stopped their trading on their platform. No one can withdraw, no one can deposit, no one can do anything with their tokens. And this is going to be a valuable lesson for a lot of the investors out there who had funds on Celsius. When your funds are on a centralized exchange or any sort of form of centralized platform, your tokens are not going to be yours. At any moment in time, those are essentially being under control by that centralized authority. And in this great example of this happening, it's unfortunate this has happened in the community, especially with all the bleeding in the market. A lot of users have millions of funds just sitting in Celsius that are inaccessible. But this has driven a lot of conversation about what is really going on behind the curtain at Celsius. And I know there are going to be probably hundreds of different takes on social media, on Twitter, on YouTube, and a lot of people are going to be using different sources for their data, for their information. And it's really hard to cut through the noise. And I hope that in today's video, you guys can feel that you have heard all the sides, have heard what information everyone is using, and what kind of narratives are being pushed and painted. And hopefully, that the on chain metrics can help you understand a little bit further what's specifically happening. So let's go ahead and get into this. What's going on with Celsius, like directly under the hood? So, first off, is going to be that it has been a perfect storm for the platform to be challenged with on-chain metrics. Flipside Crypto was able to identify a massive amount of liquidity being removed from the platform. In May of 2022, we saw a double increase in the average transactional size from the April month. It went up from 412,000 to 972,000. If the average transactional volume has gone up, then a typical user, a small fry centralized exchange user, is not going to be responsible for transaction sizes this massive, this big. And so this average transactional indication could actually point towards a centralized authority potentially trying to bring down a little bit more of a liquidity crunch on the Celsius platform itself. While there is going to be no way of formally proving that, it is certainly eye opening to be able to witness this and especially see what is going on with the average transactional volume history of the Celsius wallets. This has been key into creating a lot more of concerns for users of the Celsius platform, so much so that it has led to a massive amount of dumping for the Celsius token itself. Now, even weeks after this has all been going on, we're starting to see on social media a new kind of movement kind of being birthed with the Celsius token specifically. People are even starting to shill it as a potential short squeeze. A lot of people are starting to even reference the GameStop thesis and potentially insinuating that the Celsius token could be experiencing a similar type of situation. Let's start going over what is going on with the Celsius platform. A lot of the metrics that we're going to be going over has been kind of a story that has been painted on Twitter, and a lot of people are starting to subscribe to a theory that there is a major VC war of liquidity that is ongoing. On-chain metrics will reveal that major institutions are dumping massive amounts of STETH, and they are starting to remove liquidity from Celsius and potentially trying to drive Celsius liquidation points into more further jeopardy. There's also been speculation that there are parties that will have reason to be doing this. Alice Mashinsky is the CEO and founder of the Celsius Network. On May 11th, Alex Mashinsky came out to say that for the avoidance of doubt, Celsius Network was not and is not involved in any Luna bailout. As you guys remember, I'm sure a lot of our audience is majority lunatics. We all witnessed the tweets that came out from Do Kwon himself, from Terraform Labs, and even from different resources throughout the community saying that a deal was close, that several different firms were coming together to essentially create a bailout for the Terra ecosystem. This would involve locking in a certain amount of Luna for these several different firms who would provide liquidity to essentially support the UST peg and hopefully allow for the entire blockchain to recover. Alameda Research, Three Arrows Capital, Jump Crypto, and Galaxy Digital were all involved in this discussion. However, Celsius decided to remove themselves from the equation. They publicly made the statement that they were not going to be partaking in this sort of this bailout for Luna, and that they wanted to minimize risk for the users of their platform. For the longest time, Celsius was often seen as a place of lunatic reservoir. It was where you could go and withdraw UST and use it. And in fact, Celsius had a known $500 million worth of UST in their vault. With the $500 million worth of UST that was on the Celsius books, there has been speculation that Celsius could have potentially been the first ones to rush out of the UST 3 curve pool. There is an on-chain analysis that was performed by the Nansen team that had one of the wallets tagged as Celsius. While this doesn't officially confirm that it is fully owned and operated by Celsius, the account is closely associated and known to have interacted with withdrawals in and out of other known confirmed Celsius accounts. So while that account doesn't officially confirm that Celsius was the first one to remove liquidity from the three curve pool, it does beg the question: if they were the first ones to front run the exit and did not participate in the Luna bailout, there is room to speculate that perhaps these firms have reason to not help or potentially try to make Celsius fall apart. Over the past few weeks, Alex Mashinsky has been going on a vehement tirade on Twitter and throughout social media about how there are no issues with Celsius, despite numerous people coming out onto the social media platforms claiming severe issues with withdrawing capital from Celsius. And it doesn't even stop there. While this was probably encouraging more users to be fearful of the situation with Celsius, probably driving retail closer to withdrawing from Celsius itself, there were also other metrics in motivating individuals to perform this way into the market. This giant article coming from CoinDesk reveals a severe amount of liquidity that was being removed from the market from Alameda Research, specifically one of the firms that was involved in the lunatic recovery that ended up not occurring, resulting in millions of net losses for their firm. As you can see here, transactional history shows Alameda dumping thousands of STETH within hours of each other. And with even further support coming in from Three Arrows. Three Arrows is also in this equation, or as you can say, the plot thickens in this situation. Three Arrows is also in the rumor mill, and we will touch on them later on. But right now, Three Arrows has on chain metrics supporting the fact that they were selling thousands and thousands of STETH, further driving even more market volatility. While the war was going on chain, and we have direct metrics to show what was happening there was also a social media warfare that was being waged against the Celsius platform. Individuals like Corey Kleppenstein and Mike Alfred, voices for a major portion of crypto communities, came out to vehemently oppose and to essentially provide much more fear for retail investors on the certain conditions of the Celsius platform. As you can see here, the Mike Alfred and Corey Klippenstein tweets went definitively viral throughout Twitter and had massive amounts of engagement, essentially warning a lot of retail investors the concerns of happening with Celsius. So, the mass amount of volume that is going to be coming out of the platform is reasonable. If anyone got logged onto crypto Twitter in the past month, I guarantee you were seeing some form of concern, some form of fear on the Celsius platform, which is going to naturally drive a retail investor away from these platforms. Their involvement doesn't essentially point towards any sort of collusion with the different types of entities, but it does make a user be a little bit more aware of who and what is being said. And it is not fair to completely point this and cast this aside as simply just a we're attacking Celsius situation. There was also points of false trust with the Celsius platform itself, where Alex Mashinsky even kept endorsing that the platform was being safe and even encouraged individuals to come into deposit on the platform itself. And now it's important to understand the situation that Celsius finds itself. A lot of people have been throwing the word insolvency around. While insolvency could potentially paint the picture if we had access to their entire asset books, it's important to understand the present situation in terms of the crypto world. Right now, what Celsius is experiencing is known as an asset liability mismatch. And if you want to go sound smart, go definitely go use that word instead of using insolvency. Over the past month, SC and ETH has lost peg. This is the second time in history that SCF ETH has done this. And it has dropped so much so that it is worth 94% to that of the value of an Ethereum. This has essentially created much more short term debt and short term liabilities for the Celsius platform. Their assets have essentially dwindled in the value that they truly had, while their liabilities have continued to either maintain or continue growing. Celsius, meanwhile, has to essentially experience this entire deviation and at a loss be providing Ethereum to users that are trying to remove their STETH from the liquid staking pools. This is going to drive much more negative performance for the platform in general. But there's also important to remember that there are macro conditions going on beyond the Celsius platform. With liquidation in sight, Celsius finds themselves in a corner. They have to respond and, in some form or fashion, try to regain the trust of their community. They've even gone on record. This has been their latest statement. They will be pausing Twitter and AMAs and essentially pausing their communication with the community while they figure out the best plans to move forward. They have announced that they are in open conversation with regulators and officials and trying to find the best solution for their community, and that they are working around the clock to address this problem. Now that we've covered the Celsius situation in depth, let's try to clue in where Three Arrows fits into this narrative. Three Arrows is facing probably a very similar situation to that of Celsius. However, they are the ones with the borrowing. They are the ones who are actually borrowing and sourcing liquidity from the various different lenders in the DeFi economy, Celsius being one of them. There's been a lot of speculation in the entire crypto space that there could be a contagion effect from the Three Arrows collapse if they are facing any sort of insolvency issues. There was this famous tweet that started going throughout the community coming from the on-chain wizard, and this was being used in several articles throughout the different media outlets as the primary source of the Three Arrows trouble in paradise. It was revealed that this wallet that was tagged by Nansen is not actually the Three Arrows account. It is not actually held and operated by Three Arrows. It is actually, I believe, a Singaporean hedge fund that had some deals with Three Arrows in the past, and that triggered the Nansen flag. Like the reality is that there has been continued speculation beyond just that one account. The DeFi Edge released a very in-depth thread regarding the potential systemic issues that a Three Arrows collapse could have on the broader ecosystem. And there is some truth to the narrative that Three Arrows is certainly facing some sort of financial troubles. They were a significant investor in Luna. They invested in a significant amount of 559 million US dollars to purchase locked Luna. That locked Luna is now worth $670. Beyond that, the DeFi Edge has also had communications and conversations allegedly with protocol developers and CEOs that were having their treasuries managed by Three Arrows. There has been even more speculation that Three Arrows has been using the funds in these protocol treasuries as they see fit, since they were providing guidance for these protocols. Danny with at Danny8BC has come on the record and said that $1 million was removed from their treasury and they have not been able to communicate with anyone on the Three Arrows team. Another protocol developer who is choosing to remain anonymous and specifically anonymous only to the DeFi Edge. The DeFi Edge confirms that this CEO or this developer is verified to be part of the team that was led by Three Arrows in their seed round fundraising. So now that Three Arrows isn't communicating with these parties or is allegedly not communicating with these parties, one has to question what is going on behind the scenes with their team. Finblocks confirms that there were some liquidity concerns with Three Arrows. Finblocks sent out a letter to their users, to the community, saying that they were not going to be able to sustain yields that their platform currently offered. And due to some liquidity questions and liquidity issues on Three Arrows' side, they have decided to pause the reward distributions for the users on the platform. BlockFi has also gone on to record to say a very large client failed to meet the larger debt obligations that they were facing on the platform. They were a large borrower of BlockFi, and that this is and has been confirmed. But regardless, the tweet and all the information from BlockFi does not directly name Three Arrows as the entity that was not able to meet their loan. Beyond these platforms, members of the community have been able to really kind of dig down on the systemic implications that Three Arrows could have on the broader DeFi scene. Degen Trading had this extremely detailed thread breaking down the contagion effects that Three Arrows could consequently cause. Three Arrows is actively borrowing from major firms, including BlockFi, Genesis, Nexo, and Celsius. These firms were going to be the ones that Three Arrows would be owing liquidity. And in its peak performance, Three Arrows could have used $9 billion worth of assets to collateralize in order to secure more loans. And if that is the case, a significant amount of liquidity shortfall could be happening and occurring on major lending platforms. Without any more speculation, it's important to understand what has been out there and what information we can tangibly go off of. Suju went on record June 14th at 8 p.m. that they are in the process of communicating with relevant parties and fully committed to working out the situation. And today, just before we were going to release this video, we have come out with the news that BlockFi has officially signed a $250 million revolving credit deal that FTX is supplying to essentially provide them a bailout to balance their sheets. And SBF in the Twitter thread does claim that BlockFi customer assets are appropriately managed with no debt risk from Three Arrows or Celsius. It is quite interesting to see that both of those firms were directly named in the announcement for BlockFi, which will probably lead into more speculation that one of the firms that BlockFi, the large firm that was unable to meet the liquidation margin call, was in fact Three Arrows. And that is going to be the bare truth on the Celsius and Three Arrows situation. I want to thank everyone. If you stayed through this video this long, thank you guys so much for watching our content and continuing to support our channel. We are going through a very difficult time as a studio. We actually have managed to find a way to pivot the channel to be able to bring you guys all the great, wonderful content that we're used to creating. It would help so much, and we would appreciate it if you guys hit that like, comment, and let us know what you think is going on with the Three Arrows and Celsius situation. Celsius is occurring and ongoing, and it has not opened up its platform. So there is going to be more effects and more ripple consequences for this situation with Celsius, and even more on-chain metrics may come to light as more centralized authorities start getting involved with Celsius. On the Three Arrows front, we don't really know much as of yet. We know that there is a massive amount of liquidity being dumped from Three Arrows, a lot of rumors being spread, a lot of misguidance being kind of interpreted as fact. So it's important to keep an open mind and to understand that there are much larger things happening in the greater crypto space. And as soon as we get any more information on the Three Arrows situation, I will be more than glad to hop onto a video and explain you guys what we have learned from our team. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys in the next video.